Yes.
All right, it is 10 o'clock. Just a reminder, this is being live streamed and on YouTube. So if you have something to say, please step up to the podium so everybody can hear. Commissioner Waldham is got stuck out of town, so he will not be in attendance today. So with that, we'll call the meeting to order and rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Public forum. Anybody here wish to speak in public forum? All right, we'll move on to the agenda. Got some changes and updates, David.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dave Minke, County Administrator. If we could add consent agenda item 3.1, promotion or transfer, of Angela Mann to the vacant case aide position. And if we could add as the first item on the regular agenda, recognition of County Surveyor Week and County Surveyor Robin Matthews. And if we could add item 9.1, an update on labor negotiations in a closed session for the purpose of discussing labor negotiations. And then there is some additional information on the Osprey Wilds presentation.
I'll move as amended.
I'll second it.
Got a motion by Ludwig, seconded by Lovegren. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
All right.
Opposed? Approval of the minutes of July 18th County Board minutes and summary for publication.
I'll move that.
I'll second it.
Motion by Moore, seconded by Lovegren. Any discussion? Not, all in favor say aye.
All right.
Opposed? Minutes and board reports and correspondence of the Pine County Surveyor's monthly report for July 23 and the Chemical Health Coalition minutes for July 23.
I'll move those.
Second.
Motion by Lovegren, seconded by Moore. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
All right.
Opposed? All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. You've had that in front of you for a while.
We'll move. Ludwig. I'll second.
Motion by Ludwig, seconded by Moore. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
All right.
Opposed? That brings us down to our regular agenda, and first up is recognition of Surveyors Week. We are very, very fortunate to have a county surveyor. We've had I was thinking about this the other day, Robin. The people that preceded us were really good to us by recognizing the fact that the county needed a county surveyor. And then they were really smart when they hired Robin. It was preceded me, but we'll all take credit for it for keeping that going. A lot of counties still don't have a county surveyor the way I understand it. I don't think people quite understand what an advantage that is when you go to straighten out your property or buy and sell a piece of property to have those corners monuments there and a cost savings to all of us when that happens, that they can go to a known monument survey off that. So thanks for your work, and Mark's gonna say.
Yeah, I just wanted to say how much I appreciate Robin and the work he's done for almost 20 years now. And I remember putting a little proposal together to my boss back then saying, we need to hire a full-time surveyor and this is the cost, this is the savings. And, you know, I'm glad to have been part of that. But, Robin can give you a few bits of information on what he's done since he's been here and why it's important to have a surveyor. And we're not saying this because budget time is coming up or anything, right? We're just recognizing Robin. It's great. He's not going anywhere.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Commissioner Helen. First of all, it's not about me. This is about county surveyors. So let's just make that clear. The fact that you folks picked me is an honor and a pleasure. I enjoy what I do. So let's just, you know, I'm happy to be here. What we've done since a full-time county surveyor came on board is probably 2/3 of the section corners, maybe even 75% of them are now known. In the past, before we got here, there was maybe 25% known. So that's where we've gone in this 18 years that I've been here. The ones that we've identified typically weren't known at all, except for the original monument that was in the ground, the original wood post. And or possibly the county surveyor coming in and finding the stone. So the effort to take and find and identify these monuments is pretty significant. And that's why the process takes as long as it does. And the weather doesn't help either, right? You know, you can't dig with a bulldozer or a backhoe when it's frozen. So that being said, the value of knowing where our section lines are or where the right-of-way lines are or where anything is, it provides stability, right? To the economy, to the society, to everything. Because otherwise it's just chaos. Nobody knows where anything is. Nobody can do anything right. And there's always a hazard of doing something on somebody else's land. So that's the key to why it's important. Stability to society. At least that's my understanding. And that's what I believe in. If you don't mind, can I read into the record the proclamation?
The numbers you said.
Oh, yes. Pine County has roughly 5,200 section corners and or meander corners. And they were set in the 1850s, 5,200 of them. And we are now probably in the high 3,000s of knowing where they're at. We'll probably say 3,800, maybe close to 4,000. Of course, the easier ones are always the ones we get first, and the more difficult ones, arduous ones, are the ones we're going to get last. And that's another thing where this kind of slows down. You know, you like the numbers in the beginning because everything looks great. Oh, look at this. And they start to dwindle because now we're going to places that are difficult and access is limited. Weather conditions don't permit it. So it just takes more time and energy and effort to get these last ones done, which we will keep, pushing forward and keep plodding on. So we're doing good. The process will continue. Places that don't understand the value of this, like you were speaking, they're going to be hurting for a long time. And eventually it's going to be the same process for them. Once they finally realize that this is important, then they're going to be another, 18, 20 years, whatever it might take for them to at least get to the position that we're at now. So yes, it was a wise move 18 years ago to get a full-time county surveyor. The fact that it was me is just a blessing for me. And that's, what it is. But
So how do you establish their permanency? The corners when you find them?
the permanency is we put in a modern iron monument for one. And depending on where that, if it's in the swamp, it could be 8-foot rebar. If it's in the road, it could be something as simple as 20 inches, so the terrain will dictate that. And then we're getting GPS coordinates on them all, so that they're all duplicatable and they can be used with the GIS systems and so on and so forth. And then also they're documented. That's the key as well, is the public land certificate, public land corner certificate is a complete history of what's happened from the beginning to the end, what we did in the field, what we found, what we didn't find, how we monumented it today, the accessories, trees, and other objects we've defined in the area. So that documentation is key as well, because that's a lot of the problem from the past. Is there might have been somebody there, but they never fully documented it, never provided it to the public. That's right, because the public needs to get to this stuff. The public needs to see it and understand it, or at least have the option to find it somewhere. And that's a phone call or an email from me, and then boom, they can have it in their hands the same day or maybe the next day.
Perfect. Thank you.
Right?
So when do you find a lot of those old monuments, like an old plowshare or something that they buried and?
Yes, the answer is about a third of the time. That's no kidding. Over the course of our 18 years doing this, about a third of the time, we're going to find either the wood post or maybe the iron that was set by the county surveyor at the turn of the century, or possibly the stone that was set by the county surveyor in the 1920s. So about a third of the time we find something. The other 2/3 of the time, there might have already been a monument placed there by somebody else, but they didn't document it well. So now we got to chase, do our detective work and do a lot of investigation as to what was the source of that, what was the origin of that particular iron that we found. And if we can validate that it was set by a surveyor and done under the proper authority and proper procedures, then we'll accept that iron. And then there's times where there's nothing there. And then when there's nothing there, then what we have to do, and again, that's another time factor. When there's nothing there, now we have to go out to other corners in each direction and then apply those corners and the mathematics from the original surveys to bring that position back in known. And that's what the laws require. So we're going to follow within the confines of the law to determine that position if there is no monument ever found by us or anybody else in the past.
So Robin, you don't just take a measuring tape and measure 5280 mile?
No,
I don't know if you guys remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
well, here's this is always a funny for the surveyors. How long is a roll of barbed wire? 13-20 feet, exactly, right? So what's that mean when you start going hill and dale, right?
Yeah.
It means it's not right.
Right.
In the end, you think you got your corner and you don't, right? Because you've gone up and down and so on and so forth. So it's always going to be wrong. That's the other thing. And yeah, and just measuring isn't part of it. We're digging, we're evaluating types of wood. We're doing basically archaeology of a sort that's only 150 years old. So we're not, it's not Jurassic Park or anything, but nonetheless, it is. It's you're an archaeologist and a historian and a detective all in the same time.
So those monuments that you find, are they generally in the right spot? Or has it caused, I remember that case east of Duxbury that went on
Yep.
because it was surveyed. Obviously, something happened at different times and the guy had a pie shape. In his mind, it was really off, but it was really not that far off.
The key is, and this is why you want, a licensed surveyor being involved in that, is there needs to be a determination as to what the evidence is, right? So when we find the stone, let's say, we're going to use a lot of legal legal background to determine if we're following the law and making the determination as for the corner. So is typically over the course of time, this is another advantage to work in 18 years, is you get a feel for and get in the mind of these surveyors that were in the past. So Buckley, who was here in the 1920s and 1910s, give or take, he's about 5-6 feet off in a mile, which isn't bad. If you think about it, back in the day, that's
Right.
pretty damn good, right? So now if we think we're chasing after Buckley, we can apply that theory and those principles and say, okay, we should maybe look another 10 feet this way or 20 feet that way, so on and so forth. And you'll find that we can get the feel for these other things. So the answer is a corner ever exactly where the math says it is? No, never, ever, never, ever will I go 5280 and find what I'm looking for, ever, right? It'll be someplace else. That might be close, but it might not be close depending on what has happened in the past and so on and so forth. But no, there's no such thing as a perfect mile or a perfect quarter mile or nothing like that.
Just to follow up, Robin.
Yes, sir.
Where you find that original set, that's where it is.
Correct.
No matter what people think, that's what they.
Correct. The federal courts back in the early 1800s realized that the original surveyors, even though they said they went 5280, set their wood post, they realized that perfect mathematics isn't applicable, and that the everyday layperson, the farmer, and typically the farmer relies on the wood post, right? There's my corner, that's my corner, that's my corner. So the federal judiciary understood that this is the key. So they passed the laws were passed by the federal Supreme Court in the 1830s or 20s, I can't remember which, that said the position set by the original surveyor of that era with the authority is the location of the corner, regardless of the perfect world mathematics. So that's why when we go out there and we find the wood post and it's not at the perfect position, and we believe it is the original location, then that's what the law says is the corner, even though it might be 10 feet off or 15 feet off or whatever it is. So that, and again, that's where, the laws follow us and constrain us in what we can and cannot do and how we can and cannot operate, but that's good, right? And as long as we're operating within the law, then the corners that we set or define or monument are all going to be determined by the courts to be where they're supposed to be. And in 18 years, we've never had a problem,
Yeah, and
right?
just gonna say, that's why it's important that you do the research and find that original monument, because if another surveyor just comes along, sets a monument and says, oh, it wasn't there, without doing the proper research, well then, if Robin comes along and finds it, well then now that's where we really come into a lot of issues. And so that's one of the importance of having that in-house person whose job is to go out, do that research, rather than to we'll just set it, we kick the ground, scratch around and find nothing. But Robin has done a tremendous job of doing that extra effort so that it'll prevent issues in the future. So,
Right.
thanks, Robin.
Thank you. Can I read the proclamation and
Yep.
put it in the books? And then,
Yep.
then I'll let you folks go. Thank you. Okay, so it's the state of Minnesota proclamation. The Minnesota Association of County Surveyors has played a vital role in preserving the public land survey system, which defines the boundaries of all the properties within the state of Minnesota. The dedicated professionals of the Minnesota Association of County Surveyors continue to survey our land, providing the framework for advancing infrastructure development throughout Minnesota. The professional land surveyors of the Minnesota Association of County Surveyors provide important services using sophisticated equipment and techniques, including satellite-borne remote sensing devices and automated positioning, measuring, recording, and plotting equipment. Established in 1983, the Minnesota Association of County Surveyors celebrates its 40th year of promoting the preservation and remonumentation of the public land survey system in Minnesota through education programs facilitated by dedicated members of the surveying profession. Minnesotans are encouraged to acknowledge the dedicated service of the professional land surveyors in the Minnesota Association of County Surveyors and the important work that they do for our communities and the state in this time-honored profession. Signed by the governor this week, August 4th. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're all
I'd like
invited
to
to.
get a picture with you.
Oh, yes. I was
Can you
waiting
do
for
that?
Yeah.
I wanted Mark to be in it too, because he's my superior and he makes sure that I do.
Stand behind you guys.
Is that okay? Can I get a picture?
Yep.
Somebody have a camera?
Paper lady.
Thank you, Mark.
Dave, you're in here too. You're a supervisor. Okay. Thank you. Eventually. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
One more, please.
Oh.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for all the work you do.
Thank you, County Board, for.
I still think of when we went to the AMC and to hear that Pine County is ahead of the game, and I just thought,
We're moving forward and there's a lot of places that aren't, and that's the key
yeah,
is to it. About a third of the state doesn't have anything going for them, and that's not good for the public.
but part of it too, Robin, is your work ethics and your desire to do it and to do it right. So thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's great because everybody thinks they're a surveyor now because they can get their handheld GPS and look on Beacon and they can go, well, that thing is wrong.
It's
Because my phone says, or something says.
It's all the extra effort. It's the research, it's the excavation, it's the thoroughness that's going to keep the public protected and keep us out of trouble. So that's why it's a good thing you have.
Tell me again,
Yes, sir.
how come you put the little sign on a tree instead of a steel post that says survey marker And you got that documented.
The more permanence we can provide on the monumentation and that marked tree is more permanence. A steel post can always be removed and monkeyed with and you know, somebody with nefarious intentions can change some things. It's pretty hard to move a 30-inch oak, right? I mean, you can take the sign off the oak and you can do all kinds of things like that. But the fact that the record says from this corner is the 30-inch oak that we identified, you know, it's going to take a lot more energy effort to get rid of that oak. And so if there is nefarious activities, we can come back and easily reestablish the position which we determined in the past. And that's important too, is the coordinates are a good thing, are important, but the law still says the physical objects on the ground control where the position is. And that's why the trees and the power poles and the objects, you know, measuring off of buildings and stuff like that, all relative to that specific section corner is important. The coordinates get us there and help us find it, but the coordinates don't define the position. The physical marks do. Okay?
So if you don't find a monument, you can put the new monument in.
Correct. Yes, we put our own, we put a monument in because everybody wants to go and touch the actual marker. Yes, a physical marker is placed, but the coordinates are basically a navigation tool that'll get us within that much. No kidding, isn't that something? Modern technology, an inch and a half anywhere on the planet. I mean, it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
All
Wow.
right, have a good day.
Thanks, Robin.
Thank you for hearing me.
That's the new surveyor uniform, by the way, for Pine County.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
we'll move on to the Osprey Wild presentation. Brian?
Hey, everybody.
Hey,
Thanks for your time today.
thank you.
Yes.
And Brian, we can play that video whenever you want it. Just
Great.
let us know.
Well, I'm here on what I think is some pretty exciting development for Minnesota and for Pine County. So what you have in front of you is material for a movement called Outdoor School for All Minnesota. And what this aims to establish is a statewide grant program where every 4th through 8th grade student in Minnesota would get a fully funded experience overnight, at least 2 nights, 3 days at an accredited outdoor school. And an outdoor school is a place like Osprey Wilds, but there are 4 others in the state. There's Wolf Ridge up on the North Shore. There's Deep Portage in Hackensack, Long Lake near Aitkin, and Eagle Bluff down in Lanesboro. And between all of us in the room, I'm sure we have somebody that we know that's gone to one of those places, maybe ourselves, and know the joy you can get of getting kids outside. And today, kids just are not getting outside as much as they should or as much as they used to. Today, the average is about 7 minutes a day for a US child outside. The flip side of that is it's 7 to 10 hours of screen time per child in the US. So this is a huge shift and, you know, probably not the greatest one that's happened in the last couple of generations. Technology definitely has good things about it, but everybody benefits when they spend time outdoors. And there's a lot of research that shows all the cognitive, emotional, physical benefits of children outside. So we want to give that experience to every student possible in the state, regardless of their economic background of their family, regardless of their zip code, what school they go to. And so what this would do would be to establish a law and funding to be able to fund every one of Minnesota's students for at some period during their 4th through 8th grade years at a school. Right now, that would be all Minnesota students. So that would be public, private, tribal, homeschool students. It shouldn't matter where the student's going to school. Everybody should get to experience the outdoors. And we have legislation that's been submitted in the House and the Senate. We're really proud of the bipartisan support right now. We have very good representation of both Democratic and GOP parties on this. Our local representative, Nathan Nelson, is a co-author on the House bill, and Senator Rarick is a co-author on the Senate bill. there will actually be, so the two House and Senate bills first introduced are by Representative Christy Purcell and Grant Housechild. Those are both DFL members, but there's also a Senate GOP bill introduced by Jeremy Miller, who's down near Olmsted County by Lanesboro. And Dean Erdahl out of the Wilmer area is also introducing a GOP House bill. So this is shaping up to be the most bipartisan legislation in memory at the state. We're really excited about the value that legislators are seeing in getting kids outside. And it seems like something that everybody can agree on today is getting kids outside is a good thing. So what we're looking for is to get a letter of resolution or support from the Pine County Commissioners, just saying that you support this idea, this legislation that we can have with us as we're promoting this effort. What looks like the plan will be is that this would come up for time on the floor next spring at the supplemental budget session with the House and the Senate, and that a funding amount would be attached to that. And that hopefully this will become something that's renewed every biennium with the state budget so that there's funding for every student to experience that. So I think it's a really good thing for Minnesota students. I also think it's a really good thing for Pine County because Pine County happens to have one of these outdoor schools located in it. Osprey Wilds, which used to be the Audubon Center, but we changed our name a few years ago. We're the same organization though. We are an employer of around 28 employees year round. We see that going up significantly if this legislation passes so that there will be more economic activity coming into Pine County. Our budget would increase, our payroll would increase. So we see this being a good economic driver for Pine County as well. Currently, we serve about 2,500 K-12 students in a given year. Without even expanding our facilities, we could double that number just by increased occupancy if this went through. So I think that also is a good thing for Pine County in the area, is that that'll bring more economic growth to the area and more permanent jobs. Currently, about 30% of all Minnesota students get this kind of experience. So of the 71,000 students in a given grade level in Minnesota, about 21,000 are getting this. So there's an opportunity for Minnesota to get this to about 50,000 more students if all schools enroll in this. This isn't a mandate. This is a totally opt-in program where schools would just apply to the outdoor school. We would handle the grant requirements on our end through the DNR, and the school would get their student fee covered, transportation covered, and any teacher costs for extra hours associated with the trip. So there's truly no cost to families or the schools. And we want to remove those barriers and make this just accessible for all. So that's why the name is Outdoor School for All Minnesota. And we're fortunate to have a clip aired on Fox 9 News that if possible, we'd like to play. And then after that, I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you.
Chair,
Yeah.
I have one. So how do you think the support for this program, it's easy for us because we have the institution in the county.
Mhm.
So is there a way, have you talked to AMC about promoting this, or should we be doing that for you? Is there, so it'd be nice if every county had a resolution that says, hey, we support this program.
Right.
And because their students can go here
Yeah.
or to any one of them.
That would be great. We have, it's either 19 or 21 counties currently in Minnesota that have no schools going to a center like ours. So the vast majority go. We would love to get a letter of support from every one of those counties. But we'd like to get one from every county because every county has a school. And
That's
the
a,
more support we
that's a
can show. the
job
good.
for us when we go to the AMC Fall Policy Conference.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think if there's a
Yeah, yeah.
template that you can share that makes it easy for other counties to adopt, that would be wonderful.
So most counties are sending students already.
Yes,
Depending
Do you
on.
know the ones that are not? I mean,
I can get that to you. I don't
would
have
be
it on the
helpful.
top of my
yeah.
head, but I do have that. We,
Yeah. Okay.
as a consortium of centers, we've compiled every school that's currently coming and what county and what zip code they are. So we've been able to lay that out on a map and see where are the gaps that schools aren't coming from. So I can certainly share that with you.
I think it worked really well, Mr. Chair, with the probation bill, when every county did a resolution
Right.
to do something. So that has an impact. And I think every county would support this for education and get the kids involved.
Yeah, Terry.
So my children and my grandchildren have all been blessed with, and they go to Wolf Ridge because they
Mhm.
go to Hinkley Finlayson.
Mhm.
But watching them go through these things and the challenges that they get to do, it's amazing what it does to their self-esteem and to their, just their ability to do more
Mhm.
because they're being challenged to do things through these centers. And so I just highly recommend that every child does get to do this. It's a huge blessing to the kids and to the families. I know my daughter, she went with them this year and she said the challenges were pretty steep and there were a
Yeah.
couple that she couldn't do, but yeah, it is, it's an amazing program that you can.
And we are so fortunate to have this resource right here in Pine County and you've been kind enough to allow our board to meet there in the past and maybe we should do it again. one
Yeah,
of
we'd
these
love to
days.
host you. It's great to hear your comments, Commissioner Lovegren. I got to be a parent chaperone with my daughter who went up to Wolf Ridge with her school as well. So I've worn the hat of administering it, but then get to see it as a parent chaperone and see it through her eyes was really special. And Minnesota is unique. We're the only state that has these outdoor schools that are actually accredited schools by a third party. So that means that, you know, we have a pretty high level of academic integrity to the programs we offer. And to have a handful of them already in place to be able to start taking more students is something that neighboring states just don't have. So there's infrastructure here that, you know, we can start getting more and more kids outside really readily, should this pass.
I think I toured one in South Carolina. We went and it's on an island, so you have to kayak to get out there. So I mean, it was quite the adventure anyway, but just to know that people from New York, the schools from New York are bringing their kids down to South Carolina because there's nothing accessible. down there.
Right, yeah.
So, yeah, we have all this stuff in our back door.
Mr. Chair, do you want us to make a motion on support today or consensus?
I think we'll do a motion, but let's watch the little video clip first.
Oh, sure.
Well, school could go outside for every child in Minnesota if legislators approve a bill introduced just before the end of this year's session.
The Outdoor School for All bill aims to break down financial barriers to deliver an overnight learning experience. Fox 9's Corin Hoggard visited some of the outdoor schools to see what they're all about.
With a firm grip and uneasy steps, Spencer Easley battled his fear of heights across a ropes course a couple dozen feet above ground and soared across the zip line to the finish line.
On the course was a little bit nerve-wracking, but as you go on, it gets a little better.
The optional challenge of balance, endurance, and courage at Wolf Ridge Environmental Learning Center also serves as emotional education.
It's about them figuring out the edges of their comfort zone, how to expand beyond the edges of their comfort zone.
Science teacher Lindsay Schutte started bringing St. Croix Preparatory Academy students here 7 years ago.
You know, we can do experiments and things, but it's more applicable when you get to actually test things out.
These are waypoints that we're supposed to use the GPS to where we are.
GPS classes teach students how to find their way in the woods and problem solve. Lessons cover natural science and cultural history, but some of what's taught is less obvious. Kids experience life away from their parents and see teachers in a different light.
Students sometimes who don't do well in a formal classroom setting absolutely blossom out here.
Yeah, we can go right here.
After an hour canoeing on Grindstone Lake, Louis Nelson Grossbauer hit the shore excited about what he's done at Osprey Wilds Environmental Learning Center.
We've been learning about different kinds of animals and outdoor and wilderness.
Students here climb a practice wall before hitting the sandstone quarry. On the same day, they hang out with a porcupine, snakes, and a bald eagle. Over the last 50+ years, hundreds of thousands of students have gone through the multi-day experience at these outdoor schools, 2 of 5 in the state. But right now, only 30% of Minnesota students get access to them, often for financial reasons. The average American child spends about 4 to 7 minutes a day playing outside and over 7 hours a day in front of a screen, according to the Child Mind Institute. The Outdoor School for All bill would establish a statewide grant program opening up the outdoor school opportunity to every kid sometime between 4th and 8th grade.
We want them to know that this is out there for them to explore, to get out to and learn in and to become familiar with, so that they can have those lifelong experiences outdoors and that they can see that they have a role to play in shaping how we take care of this planet.
A long list of legislators signed on as sponsors when it was introduced in May.
With the huge bipartisan support, what we're looking to do, this is something that if there's going to be some supplementary funding available, I think this would be pretty high on that list.
It's something that I think the value is easy to see.
Appropriations committees would determine how much funding the program gets, and the 5 accredited outdoor schools couldn't host every single student, so it'll take more than GPS to navigate the path forward. But Spencer Easley would tell you it's a challenge worth climbing.
It's like maybe once in a lifetime opportunity.
Corin Hoggard, Fox 9.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
If I could ask a couple of questions. Is there other professional associations, like from the schools, the superintendents or school boards association, that are supporting this?
We're aiming to do that as we get going. Right now, the legislative session's out, but we're wanting to get the Department of Education, Teachers Union, School Board Association all on board with this. We want to make sure that we've thought through all the pieces to it and that it makes sense for schools. So that's one of our goals over the next half of the year, so that when the legislative session comes back in play, February 12th will be when, I think, when the next budget forecast is out, we'd want to have that support ready.
And then has there been a fiscal note or a cost estimate on what it would cost to implement?
Right now, we're thinking that about 25 million a year would probably cover what we need, based on what it would cost for transportation for students and covering teachers' salaries and wages and substitute teachers that need to be hired. That would probably cover about 50% or so of the students. We know that there's going to be a gradual uptick. We're not going to have everybody enrolled right away. So I think that first period, we're probably looking around that amount. And then after that, should we see increases going in terms of participation, then that would probably need to grow above that $25 million amount. The state of Oregon passed similar legislation in 2015, and they were at about 30% of their students doing this. And now 8 years in, they're at about 80% of their students doing this. So they've had time to gradually increase the funding to match the participation of the schools. So we're looking at that as kind of a model of maybe what we could expect of increased enrollments for schools to do that at maybe 5 to 8% increase per year of schools enrolling in this.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
I have one. So what we found through the state is that they make promises and then they fall short of those promises. Have you guys figured out ways that you can work around that if they don't come up with the money that they said that they will come up for you?
Not yet. No. I mean,
Yeah.
if it's a law, but there's no funding, that really doesn't help us. The financial barrier is a real problem. So luckily, the state is in a good financial position, that this seems like if there's ever a time to try this and for the state to see the reward in this, that this is the time, and that hopefully once it's initially passed, this becomes something that's regularly renewed through the state, on a biennium basis. So we'll hope that that's not the case where it's passed without funding attached. that'll be something that we'll be definitely working on this fall and winter of what's an appropriate dollar amount to get it started. And we don't need funding initially for every 71,000 students because it's just not realistic for everybody to jump on the bat. So, it can be a gradual increase, which hopefully will make it easier on the state's budget to do that as well.
Gosh,
You had mentioned that you have capacity to do about twice as much. I mean, obviously with more staff and, but do the other schools have that much or, cause I know like two of my sons have went up to the Deep Portage one for the deer hunter thing or whatever.
Yeah, Fort Corn.
Or the one couldn't get in because it's like you got like a 12-hour window to get signed up or otherwise it's full.
Yeah.
But do most of the schools have, like, they don't need to build 12 more schools in the state to get this done? Is it just something they just need more people or more staff, or are they at kind of capacity?
That's a good question. So I think there's a differentiator between summer camp enrollment, like what you're talking about, and then schools. For school capacity, I would say the 5 centers, we're all somewhere between about 40 to 60% occupancy currently. So I think, roughly we could probably double the number of students we're serving. So that would bring us up to maybe 40,000 of the 71,000. So there's still an amount that we couldn't currently serve everyone right now. So that's an opportunity for us to either expand our facilities and or for other institutions that might want to get into this game of becoming an accredited school and maybe winterizing their facilities, which is something that we've seen out in Oregon too, that other like YMCA camps or places think, well, this seems like a good thing for us to be part of as well. So I would anticipate that might be a likely thing, is to see other camp settings that might want to try to increase their staffing and facilities, as well as the current ones that I mentioned of us possibly expanding our capacity to handle more. But I think for the first several years, as this grows up, we would be able to accommodate those needs without any changes, and then hopefully get that runway built for expanded facilities or other camps that wanted to add that outdoor school component.
Now that you said that, I think both of my kids have been to years when St. Mary's was still a school in town.
Oh, yeah.
They used to
Yep.
send them up there for a few days or something like that.
Yep.
So I think both of my older ones were there for that. So it would be similar to something like that.
Yep.
That's what you're.
Right.
Okay.
Yep, usually it's Monday to Wednesday or Wednesday to Friday for most schools, and they
Okay.
get there, they have 2 nights lodging, they get 7 meals, 6 2-hour classes, 2 evening programs. And so what we're wanting is a multi-day, multi-overnight experience. So it's really immersive for those students.
Cool.
any more questions? Do we want to pass a resolution supporting this?
I'll make a motion. Do we have a resolution number or no?
I don't believe we do.
Just,
Debbie, are you able to generate one?
Yeah,
yeah. I'll make a motion to support the legislation on the outdoor school for all.
I'll second that.
got a motion by Moore, second by Lovegren to have a letter and a resolution in support of the school for all, outdoor school for all. Is that the proper name?
Outdoor school for all, yep.
Is any questions? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you for
Thank
caring for
you.
the kids.
Thank you very much for your time and your support. I look forward to keeping you updated on this as we.
Yeah,
get
please
closer.
do.
I will.
Yep.
Thanks a lot.
Yep. We'll move on to Land and Zoning Advisory Committee report.
We had, it was a very interesting meeting. So we did approve the land sale, so that's going to be coming up. We talked about we've got some buildings that need some help. They're pretty dilapidated and one of the things that we looked at are some of them are in townships where they took on countywide zoning. And some of them are in townships that or cities that did not take on countywide zoning. And so it's how far can we really go to help because it's expensive. We've got the gas station in Henriette and we did make a motion to approve that one because it's ours and it needs to get done and the state's involved and they're doing the study on the for the gas tanks that was in there. So we did do that one.
I think we need to move those resolutions.
Yeah, yeah. Do you, okay, so Arna Township wanted, I don't remember what the resolutions were. Here, sorry about that.
But Kagan's was a road right away.
Yeah, they were gonna buy that land that was, yeah. So they wanted to purchase some land and it basically is just the road right away for Pokegama Township. And then we had Arna Township. That was pretty much the same thing. It was where the land just made sense that it went to Arna Township for the road right of ways and what happened there.
Can never be used, so it's gonna be a conveyance.
Yeah.
So,
Those are the two resolutions.
so the resolution is tax forfeited land auction.
Yeah, there's, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
There's 4 resolutions. And they are 2023-35 through 2023-38. The first 2 are for auction items and 37 and 38 for our conveyance to townships.
I would imagine the discussion on the land sale had revolved a lot around this recent Supreme Court
It did.
thing and
Yeah, we had a lot
obviously,
of discussion about that.
obviously you folks decided to go ahead with the land sale because we can't put our whole life on hold.
We're excited because Kelly's on that committee that's going to be working with AMC to figure out what to work legislature wise. One of the things that she did find out is well, a lot of the counties that are on that committee, it's not all the counties, it's just the ones that are on that committee, did not even do their forfeitures this year. And some of them are not having their sales this year because they don't know what's going to happen. Our stand is life needs to keep going.
Right.
And right now, this is what the statutes are. And so we'll determine what to do with the money once we get it.
Right.
But we do need to move forward with the sale.
I think it seems like is that, am I reading that right? The thing is not about the sale of forfeited land, it's where does the money go?
Yes.
So if that has to be held in trust, so be it.
Right.
But I think we have to move on with life.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
And there's an expenditure out of the land fund for the Henriette not blight project too of 20.
Yep. So did you make a motion then for all 4 of those resolutions?
I will, is that okay, Terry?
Yep, that's
I will make a motion for the 4 resolutions and up to the $20,000 for the Henriette gas station.
Do we have here a second?
Oh, I'll second that. I'm sorry.
Okay. We got a motion by Ludwig, seconded by Lubgren. I think we all understand the motions. Any more discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That'll move us. Thank you very much. That kind of complicated life a little bit, probably. We appreciate the
It'll
work
be
you did
interesting to
on
see
it.
where that goes.
We'll move on to the cannabis update, public use ordinance.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, at the last county board meeting, County Attorney Reese Frederickson gave an update on the new law and some of the options that local governments have within that law. One of those options is to prohibit the public use of marijuana or cannabis if the local government wants to do that. And so in the packet is a draft ordinance that would do that for Pine County. If adopted, it would be effective outside of corporate limits. And so each city, if they wanted to place limits on the use, public use, they would need to adopt their own ordinances. And so if you're interested in pursuing that, you could set a public hearing for as early as September 5th.
So we had the meeting with the schools the other day too, and this is something that they're all concerned about. And I know that they're all in city limits, so it's not going to help them so much, but it will help families. So I'll make a motion that we have the public meeting on September 5th, or the public hearing.
I'll second.
We've got a motion made by Lovegren, seconded by Moore to set a public hearing for the purpose of setting a hearing about cannabis regulation, I guess would we call it?
Yes, the use of cannabis and cannabis derived products in public places.
Yes. Not on private property, but on public property. So any questions on that? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, more. Yep.
So, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
And board, there is a second question, and Terry, you pointed this out, that should the county adopt an ordinance limiting public use, it would not affect the schools. It also would not affect most county business facilities, courthouse, North Pine Government Center. And so currently there is a policy that regulates smoking on public or on county facilities. I think it's like 15 or 20 feet from the entrance. If you wanted to be more, if you wanted to limit through your own authority, the public use of cannabis at the courthouse or the North Pine Government Center, you could modify the policy. And so if you wanted to consider those changes, those could work through the Personnel Committee as the policy changes usually do. But I wanted to present that today just to get your feedback and direction if you wanted consideration of that. And
I would agree to do that.
My question, David, is what about all our county-owned land?
that's the third part of this. So, because I mean, you would have the authority to regulate county public land, like the Memorial Forest land. If you wanted to do that, that would probably be best done through the ordinance regulating county land. And we've had lots of discussions on like clearing for shooting lanes, for hunting and deer stands and stuff. And so that ordinance could be modified, and that might be a task of the land committee as well.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
That does make sense, but
Mr. Chair.
yes.
So what we're considering now is just kind of like following like alcohol and smoking kind of thing. This would be just kind of what we're looking at, like.
For the policy piece for county facilities.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Parking lots and buildings.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because right now, yeah, you can't, or
Yeah.
it's not, you're not supposed to.
Yeah, and so if the county adopted a policy to prohibit the use of cannabis at public facilities, that would be in effect. And then if the, say, City of Pine City adopted an ordinance similar to the one you're having a public hearing on in September, then they would overlap a little bit, because then it would be prohibited by county or city ordinance. So, but we don't know what the cities are gonna do for sure.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So the public land thing, I don't know how far reaching this, what does the state allow? I have no idea. I haven't read the whole, but I mean, to me, it's easy to do the buildings, it's smoking, or we don't want people to drink beer on their lunch hour or that kind of stuff in our businesses. But if someone goes camping out on, the Magic or something, do we care? If that, I don't know.
I didn't want to have the only reason I brought it up, I didn't want to have that confused with what we're regulating here on the front steps of the courthouse.
Yeah, so the public space definition or where there's a number of people around or something that can be offended by it, I think is. You know, it's like cigarette smoke.
Yeah,
right?
we've broken it down in two parts. One is for our facilities, which is our courthouse, our county garage, those facilities. And then,
Perfect, okay. I would have to think about that part more.
yeah,
Okay,
and right now, we're not thinking about that.
yeah, okay. Thank you.
Not regulating
Thank
that.
you.
Right.
Not looking at regulating it.
No.
And then also not on your list is that fourth question. And that is the regulation of retail establishments. And so that is something that we'll have discussion of over the next year or so.
Right.
Because that's not,
Because we have to, there are some we can't, by state statute, we can't declare ourselves a so-called dry county. So we have to allow for whatever the state
And the-
statute says.
and the state has indicated that they are unlikely to be issuing licenses before 2025. And so that's why when we number these, right, we're going from what's the impact today? So today you can use, if you're an adult 21 years or older, you can use marijuana in public places. And so that's what the ordinance would work to address. And then all those other things, we'll put the facility policy through the personnel committee. We'll put the Memorial Forest outdoor recreation lands on the land committee agenda, and you can decide how much thought you want to give that. And then we'll do the regulation of retail, a future conversation piece.
And to my understanding, if you do nothing with the retail part of it, it just, as many as want, yeah, it's just, you can put a so-called limit on it.
You can limit, local government can limit to not fewer than one establishment per 12,500 people. And then you can also put time, manner, and place restrictions on the sale, like the traditional zoning type of regulations.
No, we gotta go back because you confused poor Steve. If we're given the personnel committee one part of it and the land committee part of it, what are we gonna, is there anything left to have a public hearing on?
Yep, the public use at county facilities. Or no, I'm sorry, the public use countywide. Yeah, now it's, so that the ordinance would address public use countywide. So if we had if the courthouse was located outside of the corporate limits, it would be covered under that draft ordinance. But since most of the county facilities are not going to be covered by the ordinance, should you adopt it? That's the question of, well, do you want to do something to regulate that? The use on county facilities?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
do we currently regulate anything else? Do we regulate alcohol and smoking?
Yes, but in our, yeah,
In our policy.
in our
Yeah.
policy.
Okay. And this, I personally, I think this falls right in line with that. So wherever we do regulate that, which obviously I need to do some research and see exactly what it is. I mean, and that's what this is gonna cover, or that's,
This is gonna cover people on public streets, sidewalks, parks, outside of corporate limits.
Which we don't have much.
As a facility owner, we do not have much.
looking at Jeff, this kind of sounds more of a nightmare for him.
Again, I think whichever way you go adds clarity. I mean, we have something to follow rather than guessing what your desire is. You know, ultimately, that's what we answer to. So if you say that it's wide open and that you shouldn't care, then we will do that. If it's something where you can say, again, bike trail and people are standing there blowing smoke or whatever, that would fall under that where I could see a clash coming up. And again, if we know one way or the other, we can tell people that are complaining that they don't have an ordinance, or we can tell the other people. So I advocate for a little more clarity in general. And I would advocate for the non-public use. To me, it's a little different than alcohol and tobacco because you have the, the fact of what it is. Not that, somebody walking through a cloud secondhand is going to affect their life perhaps, but to me it is different because there are chemicals in there that you're not gonna eat. That to me would be a little bit different, but it is obviously.
And Mr. Chair, to follow that up, and I know we had conversation at the last meeting about the need for clarity or the desire for clarity. Having an ordinance gives law enforcement more clarity. If the county is out front with an ordinance that we can then talk to the cities about and say, if you're interested, here's what the county is considering, that perhaps provides the most consistency. And since all of the cities that contract for law enforcement contract with the sheriff, the more consistency in the ordinances there are, the easier it is. And for whether you're a resident or whether you're law enforcement to understand what the law is and what it requires. And then it's what you're doing today is calling for a public hearing. You're not making a decision
Right.
on adopting anything.
Right.
So I'm sure it will
So-
generate feedback.
And we'll have the county attorney there too, and Jeff, obviously, and we can ask more questions and, okay. Sounds good.
So we'll have a public hearing in September. Did we vote on that? We did?
Did we vote or did we just have a motion in a second?
I don't think we said the aye. We didn't vote yet. Oh, did we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, are we clear as mud on that?
I am.
Okay, we're gonna have a public hearing
Number 5.
September. All right. Joint powers agreement for the implementation of Snake River Comprehensive Watershed Management Plan.
We're getting there.
Like we've talked about this for months.
We are getting there. So we went through it one more time with a fine tooth comb and changed some things, and it was given to Reese and he gave his blessing on it. So it's ready to go. Out of the 8 members, which is the 4 soil and water members boards and the 4 county commissioner boards, the 4 counties, the other 3 counties voted not to go forward with this yet because they're still waiting for the attorney, John Kolb, to come up with the stuff that he was going to come up with a month ago. So we went with the fact that he was supposed to have it in a month ago and we were supposed to be able to get it done last week and he didn't do it. So we're going to move forward anyway. So I would just ask for approval to consider joining the Joint Powers Board for the implementation of the Snake River Comprehensive Watershed so that we can move forward and get her done. I'll make the motion, yeah.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Lovegren, seconded by Moore to move ahead with the joint powers agreement so they can start doing work.
Just one other side note on that is I asked Bowser, what happens with the money? If we don't get this done now, what happens with the money? And they had stated that it would need to be done in August. So we're there. It's to the point where it does need to get done.
Any questions?
You're already in, I mean, you have funding, right? I mean, the funding's
Not
there.
for Bowser.
Oh, okay,
We have our funding that we've provided.
okay.
Yeah.
So this just gets the funding to start doing the project.
The other thing, and I don't have the notes with, but they raised how much you're actually gonna get, so it's a higher amount that they're gonna be paying into the Snake River watershed. As a biennium.
And also to be clear, from what I understand is if you're not a county part of this, they were worried, the counties that didn't go along with it were worried that they were giving up power to the soil and water conservation districts because it doesn't stop at the county level. Currently, the soil and water conservation districts don't have a say. So now this just brings them to the table.
Right.
You still got a 5-panel board that it has to go through all that.
It'll be 8 members.
Yeah.
Unless the 3 counties decide not to do it, then it would be 5.
Currently they're not though, right? Or
Well,
not?
I
Or
don't know,
they
we'll see
voted
what
not
happens.
against it.
We'll
Okay.
see what happens if
Okay.
they go forward or not, but
Okay.
They had voted not to take it forward at that meeting, but it was all sent to them for them to move forward.
Okay. Sounds good.
And Mr. Chair, so the other deadline that's out there is what happens to the Snake River Watershed Management Board, right?
Right.
If the policy, if a majority of the members approve the JPA and there is the one watershed, one plan joint powers group, then that becomes a duplication of the Snake River Board, and then the Snake River Board would have nothing to do in essence, and so should it continue, that's unclear, but the deadline, if any county wants to withdraw, is the end of August. So that would be something that potentially you could discuss next meeting, if you wanted to be proactive and withdraw, or if you just wanted to ride it out and see what the other members were doing.
We withdraw, do we take our money with us?
I-
They got money in the bank.
I believe we would make a claim for our money. And I can't imagine that those county commissioners who hold the levy so sacred would deny Pine County a refund of its levy money.
The other part that goes with that though is the one watershed, one plan is saying that they need some of that money to move forward because there's some things that are not going to be paid for just to help to get the projects done. However, we haven't had any projects come forward for quite a while either.
And that's what disturbs me because we have, at the lower St. Croix, we have, this is our, I believe, third year of project, second for sure. And so, and there's some huge projects. And we have, as far as I know, Pine County has never sent the lower St. Croix Watershed District a check. So all the planning money and all the operational money has come from the legacy grants. So it's not costing us anything to get, and we've got a lot of projects it's just a small portion of Pine County, and Pine County farmers have gotten a lot of money out of that project fund already. And here we're sitting with this major watershed through our county, and they're fighting about power instead of doing work that would help the river.
Well, the last couple of things that we spent money on is we bought a no-till for Caneva County, and we helped people within Pine County to get water. My brain is dead today. Water barrels, rain barrels. Yeah. So, I mean, those are the two projects that we've really done this year. So.
Okay. We need to vote on it. We got a motion by Lovegren, seconded by Moore. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Terry, you got her.
Right.
Presentation of employee survey results.
Stand here where I can see the screen better. All right, well, major undertaking, this employee survey. It's kind of exciting to get the results now and to start to roll those out. It's not our first survey. We, in 2020, did a telework survey and got some good feedback that we were able to improve and maintain our telework policy. Public Health does a well-being survey in Health and Human Services. They have tapered that to about twice a year now, but I think Sam has presented those results to you previously. They get a little more granular than this countywide survey did. And then we are planning for HR to start doing a 30, 60, and 90-day check-in with new employees. Just send them out a couple of questions, make sure that they're getting onboarded and feel like they're off to a good start. So we're trying to put this survey in the context of other surveys we've done and learn from all of them. So the goals of this survey, provide employees an opportunity for feedback, insight into employee needs, and a tool to facilitate positive change. Of course, there's risks associated with anything. The results may be skewed due to self-selection. And if you're a survey person, you call that voluntary response sampling error. But people decided whether they wanted to respond or not. And so we did get a good turnout. About half of the employees responded. You do a survey and you create this expectations that people are going to see change, and it may or may not be the change they wanted, or they may or may not see the change that's taking place. Results are not easy to interpret, right? You get the different people looking at the same situation might have different perspectives or opinion about that. And then it's a snapshot in time. So the survey was done months ago. It was influenced by conditions at that time. Those may or may not still be conditions. So these risks are not reasons to not survey or not believe the results. They're just things to keep in mind as we look at the results. And so I always come back to the question. The question we're trying to answer is, what did we learn and how can we use the information to improve? Our methodology, we did the survey in late April, early May. It was an electronic survey by a SurveyMonkey. We did have a paper version available for people who preferred that or who didn't have regular access to email. We had 159 people respond to the survey, which is about half of our employees. And you'll see on each of the responses, it gives the number of people who responded. 158 people or 159 people responded to each of the forced choice questions. So that's virtually everybody responded to every question, which is really good. And then on the opinion fill in the blank question, we got 65 responses. The survey was organized. There were the first 5 questions were on organizational satisfaction. The next few questions were on your individual satisfaction. And then the last questions were on your satisfaction with your supervisor. And then there was an open comment question. So the data is really hard to aggregate. And so what I did to maybe try to give a way to process each of those 3 sets of questions a little easier is, in each of those 3 sets of questions, you're going to see slides that list the questions from the one on the top is the one that most people agreed with. And the one on the bottom is the one that fewest people agreed with. So it's just an order of ranking based on the response to agree. So there was agree, disagree, or agree, somewhat agree, neutral, somewhat disagree, and disagree. So of all those categories, most people answered question 5. I see myself working here in a year with agree, just to give a sense. So the reason you do that is then you go down to the bottom and you say, well, what did they least agree with? Or what was the fewest people? And that's, I receive adequate recognition for good work. So does that make sense? Just to go through and I'm not going to talk about each of the questions. Just leave it up there for a minute to let people kind of deduce that. And then we did the same with the individual satisfaction. So most people or more people agreed with, I know what is expected of me at work than any other question in that group. And then the fewest people agreed with, I would recommend Pine County as a good place to work to my family and friends. And on the last group of questions was satisfaction with your supervisor. Most people agreed, I feel like, or excuse me, more people agreed with, I feel like my supervisor is invested in my success. And the fewest people agreed with, my supervisor treats all employees fairly. Again, that does, these rankings don't show the intensity, right? It just shows that had the fewest agree responses. And then I pulled the most disagreed by section, and these pretty much mirror the bottom response to those earlier slides. But management listens and responds to my concerns, and I receive adequate recognition for good work. I would recommend Pine County is a good place to work, and my supervisor treats all employees fairly. So those kind of mirror, looking at it a different way, they still mirror the earlier results. This goes through each of the questions, and each of the questions was in the packet. And so I don't know if we want to I'm not sure how to review these with you beyond you've seen them. Do you have thoughts or comments or questions? We can, pop through them as we go. Is that, and then if you have thoughts or questions, because I think they say what they say. It's hard to interpret that, or it's hard for me to interpret that for you. And if you look at the top, there's the number answered and the number skipped. A couple of them have one person who skipped. So almost everybody responded to every question.
I like question 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you put the top 2 together, you got like 84% of people see themselves in that tells you something.
Mm-hmm.
What does it tell you? I mean, can I ask what?
Yeah, that they're okay working here. I don't know how satisfied they are, you don't really know that, but they're like, I can do this, right?
Well, and if they can see themselves
And I'm
working
sure
here
there's
in a
some
year.
of that group love it.
Yeah, if
But
they can
all
see
I'm s-
them.
so yeah, that somewhat agree is, I can do this. Then the agree are on board. That's the way I look at it.
I think question 6 gets to a strength of public employment. That most of the people who work for us have some personal passion for the jobs they do. Not everybody, some people it's just a job, but many people who work for counties have a passion for the work they do, which I think is important to remember, because I think it's something we can improve on recognizing.
That's a good one too.
So that one I had a question. So if you look at disagree, nobody voted for disagree, or nobody said that they disagree, but they still got 2.5%. We just move that to the top. No.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll blame that on the survey tool.
Okay.
What do you think it says about our recruitment and our retention? How could that help with recruitment and retention? All of it in general.
Well, I think making us more aware as an organization of what motivates people, and maybe having more conversations with supervisors and department heads about why are people staying, why are people leaving, why are people coming? This is an interesting question because I don't want my family and friends to work at Pine County, even though I think it's a great place to work. Too many conflicts.
Yeah.
Then we get to the last question, which was just comments or suggestions for improvement. We had 65 folks who took the time to write something. And when I tried to pull out the themes that I saw in those comments, most employees are generally satisfied. Not all of them, right? But there were a lot of comments that would be some version of, I like it here. I like my supervisor. I like my coworkers. I like what I do. Some positive thing with it would be nice if, and then something that they would like to see improved. And some of the things that came out that were suggested should be improved, more employee recognition, investing in more training for supervisors, a more robust wellness program, and then pay is a concern, right? There were comments of some version of I like it here, but we are our pay scale is not competitive with other counties or with other employers. Health insurance came up in some of the comments, and then workload. You know, I love it here, but I have too many cases. I love it here, but I have too much overtime. I love it here, but, or not necessarily love, I like it maybe, right? Some version of it's not too bad, but there's something that's really workload is a concern. So those were, you know, when I tried to distill the comments, what I was hearing. What do we do now, right? So I think we need to review, I need to review the results with department heads and supervisors. There was some written feedback that can be a more general response, like, yeah, we should do more employee recognition. How do we do that? And then there were some comments that are probably more a specific situation or a specific response that I feel obligated to do some follow-up with those areas. I'm thinking of scheduling some listening sessions, just picking a couple of times where I would be available and invite people, because this survey raises as many questions as it answers, right? And when the reason, Matt, I ask you, what does it tell you on that one comment you made or that slide you were referring to, is because we all look at it from our perspective, and we can draw the same information. I can draw a different perspective than you draw, right? And so whenever you do a survey, right, it's hard to get all of your complicated thoughts into a short comment section. So I just want to be open that if employees have complicated responses, or maybe didn't get a chance to respond to the survey, or don't feel like their response has been adequately addressed, that I'm open to their thoughts or feedback. And then we need to work and develop a more robust recognition program. And it probably costs some money, right? Not necessarily a lot of money, certainly less than the 25 million that Brian was talking about needing for the outdoor learning program, right? But we can do better, right? And I think the personnel committee has talked about that. Jackie and I have talked about that. If nothing else, this survey should be motivating to say we can do better, and it's time and resources to do better. And then we do have on October 5th, an employee health fair coming up. So that's something that just timed out that I could include that here as a way to promote a wellness type activity that we are working on. And I think that's the end. Yes. So thoughts, questions?
Was there anything on there so that we know like what departments they're from or who they were that did the survey, or?
There was not.
Okay.
And so it was very anonymous.
Okay.
And that was a decision to protect the guilty and the innocent, right? That if you get too granular on the demographic data, then you can run the crosstabs and you can go, oh, I know who this is.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't want that. I didn't want that on this survey, because I wanted to get countywide results. Some people in their comments, it's evident where they work.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I think, David, your observation that we can do better with employee recognition. That's something we've talked about for a number of years, and it's easy we're going to do that next quarter, next year, next whatever, but we can do better at that. And maybe there's some education too that can come. Our wellness program kind of fell by the wayside because it was funded out of our insurance pool money. Insurance costs are through the roof for everybody nationwide. And so as we look at our insurance costs to our employees versus people in East Central Minnesota, certainly there's people that probably have better plans, but they're few and far between. We have maybe some education to do there. let people know what kind of plan they do have. And if they use it, they know it's costing them more out of pocket than it used to. That's kind of what's happened in the healthcare industry.
All right.
But thank you.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you. Following up on that, we will do a little summary of the conclusion of the county administrator performance evaluation, because we did that in a closed session, and I think by our openness and probably even by statute, we need to say what happened. So I'll attempt, and if somebody's got some better words, please throw them in here. But overall, we gave David a excellent rating. We heaped some praise on him for his leadership and financial abilities and soundness of our budget and the process that he's put in place to really help us understand how we can put the best budget forward. We're just very well pleased with the performance and the way he kind of anticipates what we might need and supplies us with that kind of information before we ask for it sometimes. So we appreciate that, David. And with that, we did raise him to the top of the administrative salary schedule, which give him a whopping 0.006% raise or something, but it was less than 1%. So he seemed to be happy with that. At least he didn't start crying or anything. It was kind of what he asked for, and so that's where we're at. So did I miss anything major?
No, I think
You did well.
you did fine, Steve.
So
Thank you for doing that.
that's our summary. Did we miss anything, David?
No, thank you.
Thanks.
There's a good team here of support.
Yeah. We do have some things under other, so we're gonna go quickly through the commissioner updates. And then we've got some other things, and then we will have a closed session for negotiations. But the Lax Band of Ojibwe meeting, Terry, you want to take that?
It was good. We did talk a bit about cannabis with them. With them having a facility that you can smoke in, and that's an open environment, the question was specific, do they want to allow people to be able to smoke in their casino? And Sheena said, no. So we talked about them submitting a policy to get something done so that that doesn't happen, because you can smoke in their casino. So you know, it's open then to other things. They are not at this time with their leadership looking at growing or selling or having cannabis used in their facilities. So that was good news. What else can you think of?
That was the big ticket
was big.
item, I think.
This big, yeah.
So,
Yeah, covered Snake River.
Yeah, we've covered Snake River, and we've covered the land and zoning meeting already.
yep.
The only thing on land and zoning, did we cover the old creamery in Finlayson discussion? Do we need to? We can bring it back because it's not settled anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lower St. Croix Watershed Partnership. I'm continually impressed with that. It's a huge organization, and such a varied makeup, and somehow we've made it work. Not that I've made it work. The great people that are staffing that have made it work. And so I think based on that, you could say anything can work if people come to the table and say, we're gonna make this work. And there's been some people that left the organization. Been some people that have not been happy, including me at some points along the line, but we have kept our eye on the ball of why are we here in the first place? We're here to help make the lower St. Croix River system better and less polluted. And so what can science tell us and what projects are going to get there? And so it's been a refreshing thing. We do have coming up soon, I believe on the 17th at the Hinsey Farm, they're going to have a demonstration going on about some of the projects that have been implemented there. And that is a direct result of the lower St. Croix River efforts. So it's pretty exciting to me because I know that farm. I know the effort that went into it. I know the people that led the charge to make it happen. So it's truly a collaborative effort of NRCS, Soil and Water, and the lower St. Croix. So
It's a big one that they're having too. It says bring your lawn chairs. They're gonna have a
Yeah.
presentation and dinner and.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, it'll be a fun day. So Technology Committee was canceled because we got such a great committee. We handled it all at the last meeting, right, Josh? Yeah. NLX was canceled. The HRA and Development Authority, EDA.
Yeah, I can cover it quick, Mr. Chair. It was pretty much a standard meeting. The buildings are doing pretty good. Sandstone's full. Fenelson has 2 vacancies, but there's processing applications on those 2 vacancies. Some discussion about security camera that hasn't been working for years. So it just, I think, the standard pushback to a new management company there. The Kelly added a new line in our Pine County budget for the HRA, the Housing Development Authority that's included in that. Then I think the other big piece of discussion was that there's that North Court Apartments that we talked about before that might come up for sale. Or is we are going to put some kind of RFP together, or the board is, not that, and because it's I think in 2024, it can be sold. So we're just kind of get ahead of that and see if something can be worked out. If they can pick it up cheap, keep them housing here and those
Section
Site-
8
site-based.
site-based vouchers.
vouchers for those 8 units. So, other than that, I think it was pretty much, if I missed something, David.
I think you missed something. Cause I heard a rumor that our economic development coordinator got a grant
Oh, yeah.
and.
I'll let,
and
yeah,
along
Dave
with
can handle that.
some money that is sitting there that Pine County will have its own revolving loan fund of about $200,000, which I think is really, really awesome for those startup companies and those companies that got this great idea and they got that gap in financing, and this will help them get there. And it's worked great at the regional EDA, and I'm pretty excited about that.
And
That's a big deal.
just a little more on that. So we did apply for and receive a $100,000 grant from the federal government that requires $100,000 of matching funds. And so some years ago, we received about $20,000 from the North Pine Economic Development Corporation, which closed out, and they transferred that money to us. So the HRA is going to use those funds and then about $80,000 or $82,000 of its own retained earnings or fund balance to make that match. And then we will indeed have a $200,000 revolving loan fund. So, yeah. And then the board, the HRA EDA board did approve sending the purchase agreement to Accord on the North Court. So that has been sent to them for their review. And the closing is contemplated for a year from today. So August 1st, 2024 is when that would happen. So we have a year to do the due diligence, make sure it's a good investment for the HRA EDA.
Prices may be negotiated.
Yeah.
No price yet. So.
Good. School, county and Pine Tech meeting. I think, I mean, just getting together with those people is so awesome, and thanks to Becky for being there to talk about the Family Resource Center, and to Joe Munford, and had some very exciting news about their program and possible housing, student housing thing that maybe, pardon me?
That was supposed to go on Wednesday. Did that get or is that this Wednesday?
I think it's tomorrow. Joe would know. I think it's tomorrow, isn't it, Joe?
Okay, thanks.
That would be a variance that the city is considering
Yeah.
for that project.
To have, yep.
And I think the theme, the one theme was, you know, we're all in this hiring thing together. And some days we think we have trouble getting the right employees for the right job. We have to remember our schools. They're, like one of the superintendents says, it's August and we still have openings for teachers, and we know what's coming at the start of school.
They have 8 teachers and 4 staff members that they're still looking to fill.
Yeah. So, we'll keep them in our thoughts, and if you know some young person that's looking for a job, tell them to move to Pine County.
Mr. Chair, just
Yeah.
a note on that. We had tentatively set the next meeting for October something. And then I learned from a couple of the school districts that conflicted with an event that they have. And so we're looking at potentially November 1st, but I will confirm that and send that new date out.
Get any more on the school?
Yeah, it was just going back to Joe, and you know, I did the orientation this week at Pine Tech, or last week at Pine Tech. And it was our very last orientation for the scholarships that we were able to give, which was kind of a hard thing to swallow.
Yeah.
But one of the things that Joe talked about with the legislation that came through is it's called the North Star Scholarship Program, is what they're calling it. And it's a last payer program, which is what we did. And a lot of people that want to go on to college, they don't realize that with their family financial situation, it's going to be paid for in full anyways, because they qualify when they do their FAFSA and everything else. But with this one, it's an 80,000 adjusted income and a reduced cost to 75,000. So maybe with this legislation, we'll be able to continue moving forward. One of the things that he talked about is we're offering $1,000 to go towards books or materials that they need. Maybe that's something that we could continue figuring out how to do something just to help with that. I'm just going to go into the scholarship program while I'm at this. So while we were there, there was a gentleman by the name of Bodie, who was one of the very first Franzen scholarship people that took it. And he talked about how he took the welding class, and now he's welding. He's got a very good job. He said, I've been able to buy a house. I own toys. He owns a slot machine, which he said everybody should have one. But because he was so blessed with the scholarship, he's paying forward and buying lunches for kids this year. So, you know, it's a big thing being able to get the scholarship and seeing somebody who's succeeding who took a scholarship. It's just rewarding to know that we help change lives. So, yeah.
So I think the end of that whole story, Terry, is we still have to keep our foot on the gas. And because there's still going to be this gap of students. Joe thinks it's going to be probably in that $75,000 a year range that we, that there's gonna be a hole that we could still say Pine County. If you are a graduate of Pine County, you can get a free education at Pine Tech. But there's about a $75,000 gap, and so we gotta keep thinking about that. Anyway,
I have another, Mr.
Yep.
Chairman. So I went to the Sturgeon Lake.
oh, yes,
High water meeting. That JJ.
yep,
The money, Houston Engineering, but that's what the money went for. Did the presentation to 50 some people were there. And it basically boils down to, there was like 5 options. The cheapest one was 3.1 million and the most expensive was $5 point some million. And they're I'll just keep this as short as I can. So the options are ditch or pipe. And so, but the DNR, here's the problem. To get it someplace, it's gonna be, it has to wind all around, dump it in the Will River or the Kettle River, so it's gonna be a long move. And you have right of ways and all that kind of stuff. But the initial hurdle is if you have a pipe, you have to pump it. Or first, the first hurdle is Sturgeon Lake is has aquatic invasive species. So the DNR has a rule, you can't convey any water that's infested to any other body of water, because you're exposing the infestation, which makes sense, right? So if you do a ditch, how do you do a filter? So then you have to set up a sediment pond, and it's a big expense there. So that's a whole, if you pipe it, which then you have to dig and trench the pipes, then you have to have pump stations that when it rains 3 inches, somebody has to decide, do we run or go? You know, there's all kinds of complications. Plus they have filters that catch all the aquatic invasive species that everything has to be maintained. So that's, who knows? There's 4 different options of where they can go, or 5 to make it work. It's a long ways out and it's a lot of money. Then somebody asked, well, who's gonna be responsible for this system once it's in place? And, you know, of course, I was there and Dotseth was there. And they said, well, what Pine County? I said, I can't answer that question because, you know, we're not going to take responsibility for that system. We have a lot of lakes in the county. It's like, I don't know. I said, to me, what I do know is with ditch law, whoever benefits from the ditch pays for the ditch. I don't know if, then the guy said, well, this is a pipeline. That's not a ditch. Well, I said, I don't know. I don't know how that's going to apply. I don't know anything, but so anyway, if it does happen, there's, it wasn't really a public hearing or anything like that. It was just, do we move forward? But there was enough people that had, it's their second place, their home, you know, and have stuck $13,000 in riprap. They want something done, you know, and then you got the people that I don't want to go on. It's fine. Water goes up, water goes down, you know, that mentality, which, so anyway, that's my report. And I'm sure there'll be more to go. Of course, I just sat in for JJ because he was gone, but it was quite interesting.
thanks for going.
Yeah.
Any other? I do have one thing. We got a letter here, actually Mark and got it from Congressman Stauber's office that after careful review of all the requests, the committee, the House Appropriation Committee has selected Bridge 58510 replacement on CASA 61 over the Snake River. That's the bridge right down here in town, to be further considered in the next appropriation. So that's good news because we've made it through the first hurdle, so to speak.
One right in the city?
Yeah. And we know that's coming up in the next 4 years probably for replacement. we know what bridges cost. So if we can get that on that federal appropriation instead of taking it on our own hide, it'd be awesome.
That's
So
good news.
that's very good news. So keep when we see Congressman Stauber or his aides, don't let them forget about that bridge, how important it is to our economy and to our budgets. So,
Seeing him soon.
yeah. Any other business? We will then look for a motion to go into closed session.
We take a
To
1 minute?
discuss labor negotiations.
Do a quick recess before we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm getting old.
Are we back live? we're back, recording, live streaming.
Yep.
So if someone wants to make a motion to go into closed session.
I think we got a motion by Matt, seconded by
Yep.
Lovegren to go into closed session. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
We have to read the
Board is now back in open session. Is there any other business that needs to come before the county board? Hearing none, we'll declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you all.